What is good, ladies and gentlemen? And we have been gone for quite a moment, but today we are back, not with any fire, but some water. And we ended up taking ice barriers to locals. And if you guys didn't see that, we went live on Twitch, and that's where we're going to be going live from now on. But then we'll eventually upload over to YouTube eventually. And I ended up not doing so hot with it, but that's mostly because of just bad hands, like really bad, unfortunate hands that can happen to anyone. But anyway, I want to show you guys like my first iteration of the deck. There are some things that are liable to change, like the introduction of the barrier statue. There's just so many different avenues to play this deck, and this deck literally fits right up my alley in the terms of combos and stuff like that it can do. So without further ado, we're just going to quickly jump into the deck profile, and I will definitely do a test hand video and do something like a combo guide to this deck, because there are tons of combos that this deck can do. But anyway, without further ado, let's just jump into... Here we go. We got three revealer, excuse me, of the Ice Bear. This card is like one of your 1.5 card combos. It is really good. All the Ice Barriers have like a passive effect, like a continuous effect, and they all have like an ignition effect or non-summon effect. Revealer is that your opponent cannot tribute summon, which is really cool, but hasn't, I mean, leave this on field against like Flowunderies, and it's rough for them, but she is a discarded card, and then you can summon a Ice Barrier Tuner, I believe is which one Ice Barrier Tuner monster from your deck. And yeah, so she's really good, and then she's just one of our 1.5 card combos. Moving on, we have the Speaker of the Ice Barrier. We're just going to go through and do like all the three ofs. Speaker here, for all intents and purposes, she is an extender, and she gives you a token. So like this is like a really good extender. If you control an Ice Barrier, you special summon her, and then if you control an Ice Barrier while she's in the graveyard, you can banish her and give yourself a level 1 token, which is really cool. And then moving on, we have Sir Georges, the Swordsman of the Ice Barrier. This card right here, we called it Old Greg at locals. Old Greg here is really cool. If you control an Ice Barrier, you can special summon it, and then you can special summon a level 5 or lower from your graveyard. And then his guy's continuous effect is your opponent cannot activate monster effects in the graveyard, which is really kind of crazy. But he's a really good extender. The one thing I'll say that I've noticed about playing the deck is it just kind of, all the Ice Barriers extenders have to extend by controlling an Ice Barrier on the field, which is like really fair in a way, but it does like kind of limit some things. Like sometimes you'll have like Old Greg in hand, and you'll normal summon out either your Speaker or your Revealer, and they remove it either with Ogre or like their removal, and then Greg just kind of stays in your hand. But yeah, not much more I can say. I don't know yet if moving forward if I would continue to play 3 Greg. 3 Georges here is actually, I mean, like it feels like it comes up right, but I just in the local testing I had, I was breaking on a lot of like opening like Greg with like non-playable hands. But most case, like Georges plus like the Hexia is combo, Georgia plus like any of your level 4s is combo. Even if like Revealer gets hand trapped, like, and you have Georges, you're still able to like special summon out Georges, and if you discard an Ice Barrier, reborn it. But most importantly, these two right here just allow you to easily make the Lancia, the Primordial Dragon of Ice Mountain, which is really cool. But moving on to the next 3 of, we are on to 3 Mirror Mage. This is arguably the best card in the deck, and this is very difficult because I ended up losing 2 games out of the entire night because all I saw was Mirror Mage, and Mirror Mage doesn't do anything. There is some particular sequencing where you could like normal it and then link it off into Almirage, but I don't know what the combo sequence is after you commit your normal to. I don't know if there's like a plethora of cards like you could play, because if you have to normal summon this card, it's kind of rough. But I guess like in some instances, like if you open like Mage plus the Ice Jade card, like you could potentially like, but you would just pitch it right off the bat. Like it would be like there would be no need for you to do that. But yep, 3 of this card. If you guys don't know, this card is literally the bread and butter of the deck. You contribute 1 other effect monster you control and then summon up to 3 Ice Barrier tokens. This card gains the level of those tokens. They're all level 1 tokens. And then if it's sent to the graveyard, you can add an Ice Barrier card from your deck to your hand. So this card is literally pretty wild. Moving on to double Hexa. Hexa is actually interesting because like this is a true 1-card combo in the deck, and this 1-card combo gives you to the draw 4. But it's not as insulated as the Revealer combo, where the Revealer is a 1.5 card combo, but it gives you to Toad before you commit to your 5th summon. So like this card just is pretty much a draw 4 combo uninsulated, whereas like Revealer is insulated. This guy is on summon. He lets you send a tuner to the graveyard, and a level 3 or lower Ice Barrier monster, I believe actually. Level 3 or lower Ice Barrier monster from your deck to your hand, then it gets that level. It becomes that level. And then all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense. So not much there. For the 1-ofs that you summon off of Lancia, you have 1 General YuGiOh, 1 General Wayne, and this is the Spellbreaker of the Ice Barrier. This should be Warlock. I thought I ordered a Warlock, but I ended up just ordering 2 Spellbreakers. So essentially, this card is General YuGiOh here is really insane. This card says when an effect that was activated on your opponent's effect monster that was on the field, they can discard one card, and if they do that effect, if they do not, that effect is negated. So essentially, it means every effect your opponent activates on the field on resolution, they have to discard a card, otherwise that effect won't resolve. So this is a card you summon off Lancia that comes out, and then your opponent like starts losing resources. A General Wayne is like an extender, as well as like something you can summon out. Any spell or traps on the field, when spells and traps sent from the field to your opponent's graveyard are banished instead. And then if you control a monster, if you control an Ice Barrier monster, your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card, and then on normal or special, it lets you add an Ice Barrier spell or trap. And then one Spellbreaker. This should be Warlock, and all that Warlock does is it is essentially an anti-spell fragrance. And you normally, the ideal is to summon out both General Ryo and the Warlock off of Lancia. So then, like, at a bare minimum, you're like, you have some form of like odd disruptions in the sense of that every time they have to resolve a monster effect, they gotta discard a card, and they gotta set all their spells, which is really cool. And Lancia in itself is like a phenomenal. Lancia is like an insane boss monster. Like it's glad they finally gave the deck a boss monster. But moving on to generic waters, 1 Ice Jade Ran Arginine. This card is a 1-card Synchro 10 essentially for waters, and it's a 1-card Lancia. It's a 1-card Shizhao, excuse me, not Shizhao, Shindling. I can't pronounce his name. Or the other Ice Jade Synchro, which is a really good card in general. This card again, like and then you're drawing 4 cards if you do like the standard combo, right? So like even if you don't open this card or you don't open a water to pitch off of Arginine, you'll draw into one more than likely, unless you're me and you just like draw horrible. You draw double Tactics, double Ash, and that's your 4 cards. But that should not be happening like statistically. But yep, this card's pretty phenomenal. It's a very like superior extender, and sometimes like just getting to the Lancia is like all you really need. You get to this card and like you can win games on this card alone because you're summoning out the General, you're summoning out the Warlock, excuse me, and then like if they out this card, you're summoning the Trishula from the extra deck, and you're able to just do so much. But yeah, so just getting that card is like really important. Moving on to the next waters, I am teching in currently right now 3 Deep Sea Minstrels. Minstrel plus the Mirror Mage is like a combo sequence you can go through to get you to barrier lock your opponent. And I also know that there's a different version to play this deck. You could play like Runic in it, but I didn't want to play Runic. I feel like Runic does work well with this deck, but there's just so many other decks that Runic does better with. I feel like this deck could do fine pure. And Minstrel is just one of those cards, like, why wouldn't you play it? You get to discard your waters, look at the hand. We are a 1.5 to a 2-card combo deck, so, like, ditching off Minstrel, that is not too big of a deal. It also gets you in certain cards that you can bring back with old Greg over here, which is kind of crazy. But Minstrel's just there to snipe out that hand trap. And then you can use it in conjunction with talents and stuff like that. But yeah, Minstrel's just a phenomenal card for the deck. Moving on to hand traps, we are on to triple Ash and then triple Bell. And then we'll just go ahead and show the other 3 traps at triple Imperm here. These are it for the hand traps. 9 non-engine. Technically, if you count in the drop, not the droplets, you include the triple Tactics and the call by, you have technically 12 non-engine spots. And you could even go like slightly further if you wanted to. If you wanted to count like the Deep Sea here as a hand trap too, but for going first, it could be counted in that. But essentially, you're drawing 4 throughout your combo sequence, so why wouldn't you play like these cards? You know, like you want to see these cards. And if you're drawing 4, you might as well draw into hand traps, right? Like why wouldn't you want that? Moving on to the spell cards, we are on to Triple Medallion. It is literally the Rhoda of the deck. It is not once per turn. Back when they used to make Yu-Gi-Oh cards, not once per turn. So if they ash this, it's pretty cool. You just get to keep going on. And then 1 Freezing Chains and 1 Winds Over the Ice Barrier. These are very good extenders. This is a Monster Reborn, and this is a tribute any number and summon the same number from the deck. So it allows you to play through like things like Imperm and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. But yeah, not much really more can be said. Also, Freezing Chains has a cool effect where if you control 3 or more ice barriers, your cards your monster cards are unaffected by your opponent's monsters from the extra deck, which is kind of cool. But yeah, essentially that's it. And then for the final 3 spells, we have triple Tactic and 1 call by. The deck is predominantly for going first. Like the deck really kind of can struggle going second, but we do have like going second ways, like cards to play going second. But moving on, we'll go over here to the extra deck. 15 cards. There are some changes, and I'll talk about them as we go through them that I would like to make. But moving on to the new boss monster of the deck, 2 Lancia, Ancestral Dragon of Ice Mountain. This card is really insane. I'll read it to you guys. Once per chain, if your opponent special summons a monster except during the damage step, you can special summon 1 Ice Barrier monster from your hand, deck, extra deck, or graveyard. Then you can change 1 attack position monster your opponent controls to defense position. You can only use the effective Lancia, the ancient, and blah, 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 twice per turn. If this synchro summon card in the owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can special summon one Ice Barrier Synchro monster from your extra deck. This is treated as a Synchro summon. So this card is really insane for the deck, guys. Like up to twice per turn, you can summon. It's a 3,300 monster. There's just some cool things you can do. Like you can summon out your General, like I was showing you. You can summon out General. You can summon out the Warlock or whatever it is you're playing. I'm sorry about the glare. You can summon out George. So like sometimes like the combo sequence is you're dumping the Warlock to the graveyard because you've already opened like a Mirror Mage through your combo. So you're sending the Warlock and then you're using the Ancestral Mountain to summon out George, and George brings back that. So then your opponent gets no access to their graveyard, and they also, or the grave effects are turned off, and they have to set their spells, which is really crazy. Yeah, this card is pretty wild for a boss monster, and I think it was just well designed personally. And then for the other Ice Barriers, you are kind of playing. I have one DeLorean, one Brionac, one Trishula, and one Trishula Zero. These cards are pretty crazy, guys. The one card that it's probably like one of the cards is DeLorean here. I find myself not making it in this list quite often, so like this could definitely be like the Diva Synchro 7, which would allow you to play the barrier statue and do some crazy locks with that. But DeLorean never came up. I did definitely go into Brio and bounce some cards. When your Lancia gets solved, depending on when they solve Lancia, right? So if Lancia is on your board and you get nibbed, you go for Trishula because you're going to be able to banish the nib and banish a card out of their hand. So they've technically hand looped them for 2. And then if you're going second and then you end up establishing Lancia, or your opponent is going second into your board and they decide to hit you, you go into Trishula 0, which banishes 3 cards on the field. And then if they solve Trishula 0, you go down into the normal Trishula, which is really insane. But that is it for the Ice Barrier cards that we are playing currently. And again, like I said, I'd probably end up cutting DeLorean later on. Just because like he never came up. Moving on to Crocosaur and the Coral Dragon. This is part of the draw 4 combo. You're able to draw 3 cards off Croc and draw 1 off of the Coral Dragon, which is pretty wild. And then Croc has the effect that you ditch 2 cards and pop a card on the field, so it's like a Dryden-esque effect, which is really nice. For the Synchro 10s, Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign Shinying, Ice Jade Grimoire Argerine, and that's it for those. These cards are pretty crazy. This card's actually kind of insane. I guess, quote me if I'm wrong, there's a ruling to where if you're under Shifter and you summon Arginine, you no longer are locked. The cards can't be banished anymore. So then that effect precedes the Shifter, so cards go to the graveyard. Quote me if that's what I heard. I'm not sure it's true. But of course, Sovereign's just a good Synchro 10 to go into. If you're playing the Runic variant, this card shines a little bit more because you're able to fire off the Runic cards to banish cards, which allows Shinying to trigger better. But other than that, sometimes like you can have Shinying out and then you can trigger it yourself because of your opponent either hard removing the Lancia going into your Trishula, or by just hard making Trishula. For the Synchro 8s, we are onto 1 White Aura Rail and 1 Emancipator Risen Dragite. This is what allows you to go second, in my opinion. I think this card deserves a main deck spot just because like the deck really struggles to go second, just playing through stuff. So White Aura Rail just allows you to like have at least a Regeki form, right? So you don't have to. You have some main deck or in deck way outside of drawing non-engine. And then Emancipate Risen is another like Omni Negate you can end, not Omni Negate, but a Spell and Trap Negate you can end on. Sometimes, man, you want to end on this plus Lancia because then if they try to end perm Lancia, you know, you can negate it with Risen. But this arguably would. So I know I said it was 2 cards. DeLorean and White Aura Rare would be like the possible culprits to go, but White Aura Rare did come up quite a little bit today in the few rounds that we tested. And the little testing that we did after it came up in breaking boards. So like I don't know yet if this would be it. Maybe the card to cut is just DeLorean because you got like White Aura Whale and Brio to be able to crack some boards. It just depends on the hand if you can get to him or not sometimes. 1 Marine Cess Cruel Enemy. This is the only link you play. Arguably, if you cut DeLorean and you didn't want to play like the Barrier Statue lock, you could potentially play a second Coral Enemy or an SP. It's just most of the time you're locked into water or synchros, so like you don't want to make SP. At the time they come and make SP never came up once. And then for the 2 final XYZs, we got Bahamut Shark and Totally Awesome. This is, you make Totally Awesome under your typical combo sequence. But anyway, guys, that is it for the profile. Like I said, this is the first iteration of the deck to see on the channel, so hopefully we'll get to see more testing. There'll be definitely some more videos and combo videos and like test hands coming up with it, so just stay tuned for those. And without further ado, this is Charles from Team COG signing out.